I should have left after our first date. 2 years later, I'm secretly planning my escape with my baby. My boyfriend and I have been together since 2022. The very first sign that something might be wrong happened the night after our first date. We were watching TV when it froze. He suddenly got very frustrated. He threw the remote, slammed his bedroom door, turned off the lights, and told me he was going to bed and that I should too. At the time, I told myself it was just a moment of frustration. Looking back now, I realize that moment probably should have been a warning sign. But I stayed. Over the next 2 years, situations like that continued to happen. Whenever he got overwhelmed or frustrated, he would have emotional outbursts. Afterward, he would usually calm down and apologize. He would tell me he would try to do better and that I didn't deserve to deal with that. And every time, I believed him. I told him it was okay, and we would move on. In the summer of 2023, things became more complicated. He quit his job. Not long after that, we found out that I was pregnant. I work as a waitress, so our financial situation became very difficult very quickly. Because of that, we ended up moving in with his family. He told me it would only be temporary. But months went by, and he didn't start looking for another job until that winter. During that time, he expected me to somehow save enough money for us to move out, while I was also preparing for the baby and continuing to work. Eventually, the tension in the house became too much. There were frequent arguments connected to his mood swings, and eventually, his parents asked us to leave. So we had to find another place to live. Our baby arrived in the spring of 2024. 2 weeks later, he quit his job again. At that point, I became responsible for covering all of our bills. At the same time, I constantly felt like I had to be very careful about what I said or did to avoid upsetting him. This morning, I finally had a small opportunity to leave the house without my boyfriend, and that single opportunity may have completely changed my life. I went to see my dad. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I wasn't handling everything alone. My dad told me that if I needed to leave quickly, he would be ready to help at a moment's notice. He also advised me to start documenting everything I do for my baby, especially since my boyfriend rarely helps with childcare. That kind of documentation could be important later when it comes to custody arrangements. Right now, I'm nursing, so any visitation would be limited to short daytime visits anyway, but my dad wants me to be prepared for everything. He also offered to help me find a job in my hometown, and if I need somewhere to stay temporarily, I can stay with him until I find a place of my own. Just hearing that support lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. Since then, my family has been helping me quietly prepare. My leasing office is even working with me to find a discreet way to remove my name from the lease so I can leave safely. I've started documenting everything, sometimes writing it down, sometimes recording things on my phone. My mom is helping me look into getting an attorney to help with custody arrangements. And my dad and my stepsister are helping me slowly move important items out of the apartment. My stepsister lives nearby, so she's been able to take things from me little by little and bring them to my dad for safekeeping. At the same time, I've also started applying for jobs and looking for housing back in my hometown. Yesterday was a very stressful day. Several things happened that made the situation feel even more urgent. During the day, there was an incident where my boyfriend spoke harshly to his older child. I contacted the child's mother as soon as I could, and she picked him up. Later, I had to take my baby to the emergency room because he had become very sick and needed medical care. Thankfully, he is now receiving treatment and being looked after. While we were at the hospital, I was extremely stressed. At one point, I spoke a little sharply to my boyfriend because I was worried about our baby. His response was to say he simply wouldn't speak to me for the rest of the day. Something about that moment made everything suddenly clear to me. I realized I was done. Completely done. And I knew I needed to leave as soon as possible. So I contacted my family and told them what was happening. Later that day, I realized I would have a very small window of time. About 20 minutes. He was going to leave the house briefly, and I knew that was my chance. All day, I stayed calm and patient. I quietly gathered the things my baby and I needed the most. I placed our most used clothes into a laundry basket so it would look like I was simply planning to do laundry later. Everything had to look normal. Then the moment finally came. As soon as he left the house, I took the opportunity. I grabbed the basket, my baby, and the essentials we needed, and I walked out the door. Before leaving, I wrote a note explaining why I left and outlining the next steps I planned to take regarding custody and collecting the rest of my belongings. Then I drove to my family's home. The entire drive took about an hour. During that time, he tried to contact me repeatedly. I didn't answer, and for now, I don't plan to. It's been over a year since I left my ex with my 3-month-old son. And now that things are much safer and more stable, I finally feel ready to share what life looks like on the other side. When I first told my story, I mentioned that I worked in food service. That wasn't actually true. At the time, I changed that detail to protect my identity and keep myself and my child safe. In reality, I was working as a daycare teacher. Since then, my career has grown in ways I never expected. Today, I'm actually a salaried daycare director. It's amazing how quickly things began to improve once I was able to focus on building a stable life again. My son is now a happy, healthy toddler. He spends most of his time running around our home, laughing loudly, and exploring everything he can reach. He loves sitting on the couch, eating snacks, and cuddling up with me at night while we watch old movies together. He also attends the daycare where I work. Every day he's learning new things, becoming more curious about the world, and developing his own little personality. He's smart, adventurous, and honestly more than I could have ever hoped for. Life has changed in another important way too. My son now has a future stepdad. He is a kind, gentle person who cares deeply about both of us. When he first met my son and me, he welcomed us into his life immediately, and over time, we've built a strong and loving relationship together. He supported us during a difficult period and eventually helped us move into his home after another unexpected challenge came up with our living situation. Having someone who truly cares about both of us has made an incredible difference. Now we're planning our future together. We're preparing to buy a home, and in the next few years, we hope to get married and continue growing our little family. For the first time in a long time, life feels peaceful and hopeful. We've even started building a strong community of friends around us. This year, we're hosting our own Friendsgiving, which feels like a small but meaningful milestone. There are still some things we're working through. I didn't have enough documentation or financial resources to pursue certain legal options. Because of that, the current custody arrangement is shared. However, I'm now saving money to hire a lawyer and explore options that may allow me to seek majority custody. My goal is simply to create the most stable and supportive environment possible for my son. With stable careers, a supportive home, and a strong support system around us, I'm hopeful that things will continue moving in the right direction. A year ago, leaving was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. But looking at my son now, happy, safe, and growing every day, I know it was the right one. And today, our future finally feels bright.